These two guys care deeply about the movies. They care deeply about baseball. They have unusual expertise in the story we're talking about this morning. Adnan and Virk, you could check out Cinephile. It's been doing great movie coverage for multiple years, 3 years now, as part of the Le Batard and Friends Network. And David Samson, nothing personal, is going on tour, growing his empire. We will tell you more about that in a second. But, gentlemen, this story, David, I'll start with you. Tell me what it means, because I can't think of something shaking the sport or sports more at the start of the season than this kind of story reported this way at this time with these participants.
Well, let's talk about the way that this story is being reported, because we're dealing with different time zones where people are getting confused. Did things happen on Tuesday in Korea? Was that Wednesday in New York? Or maybe it's next Friday in California. But when you see Shohei Ohtani, who is the biggest name in baseball, signed the biggest contract in the history of team sports, getting $700 million from the Dodgers, when the team is in Korea playing and the story's about gambling, it's the third rail of stories. So everybody within baseball is trying to stop it, tourniquet it, say we're not investigating, everything's fine. It was a single interpreter theory. One guy did everything. But I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and there's going to be a lot of outlets, and I don't know that MLB Network will be one of them, but there will be a lot of outlets who are going to report this story and figure out what really happened with Shohei Ohtani and all of this money lost to illegal gambling.
It's stunning, Dan. I mean, listen, Ipe is one of these guys. He is synonymous with Shohei Ohtani. Everywhere he goes, those two are as thick as thieves. Went to Southern Cal. He's but his lifelong friend. I mean, everything about Ipe is like, oh, he's like almost a mascot with Shohei Ohtani. Just, oh, there's Ipe again. There's Shohei. We can go talk to him and crack a few jokes. To see the story come out, that Ipe got fired, I felt terrible for him. Then I see gambling debt. I said, oh my God. Then I see massive theft alleged, $4.5 million. Stunning. I mean, the story got worse and worse. And I was like, listen, it's not horrible. It's not surprising, by the way, that somebody incurred massive gambling debt. That happens all the time. But as David said, the fact that it's involving Shohei Ohtani, the supernova of the sport, who signed for $700 million, and it's his best friend allegedly that did it, stunning.
Well, one of the things that we really have to focus on here is that when you're meeting the media, the cover-up can often be worse than the crime. And what the interpreter said is that he was not aware of the difference between betting with DraftKings or betting with a bookie. This is not someone who's coming off the turnip truck. He's been in the U.S. for 25 years. Right. He has been here. So he knows when you're with a bookie, it's illegal. And then he said that it all snowballed and no one knew. But then he acknowledges that Ohtani has helped pay for his debts. But then he says Ohtani didn't know anything. So what we have to do is find out, and it's going to involve depositions. It's going to involve oaths. It's going to involve truth-telling, because it's too important a story for the sport. What worries me is that it's not going to be covered by – so Adnan, thinking about your job – yeah. MLB Network has got to cover this. ESPN did the game this morning, right, and they addressed it off the top. But then they let the 4-hour game happen where the Padres got the split, and they only made a passing mention to it. And I've been at networks where they say, hey, don't talk badly about the NFL. Don't talk badly about baseball. The MLB Network, that should be the go-to place, and you should be the go-to reporter here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's me specifically. As you know, the host is the one running quarterback. It's not going to be analysts talking about it, but it'll be your John Heymans, your JP Morosi's, your Tom Verducci's, all those insiders. I'm sure those guys will be covering the story as extensively as they can. What is Tony holding up, by the way? I saw there was some signage in the middle of me talking. Yeah.
We've got a web right here, which is what I've been kind of just doing from the beginning of the show. Just outlining the entire situation of the Ohtani scandal with the web. You've already mentioned I had one of my webs, David Samson. He didn't know it was illegal. Weird. Why? Also,
liar.
Massive theft. Who? That's the question nobody's asking right now. Who?
What is best case scenario here for both of you? Like, what? How do we get out of this okay?
Excellent question, Jess. Lone gunman theory. Blame Ipe for everything. He's a scapegoat. He has a massive gambling problem. It was out of control. That's it, and nothing tied to Ohtani. David?
I think the problem with that, so we have to really talk about the Japanese culture. And it may be a topic that we don't want to discuss on this show or anybody's going to want to discuss. but the relationship between the player and the interpreter, and I had it with Ichiro when he was on the Marlins for all those years with his interpreter, there is a level of respect that the interpreter shows to the player, and there's a level of loyalty that the player shows to the interpreter. When we signed Ichiro, we had to hire his interpreter. It wasn't a negotiation. We were given the salary, given the name, and he became an employee of the Marlins organization. As I mentioned earlier on Nothing Personal, the only employee I ever hired without a background check. Never did one thing. In came Alan, who is an amazing, amazing guy. Is there a scenario where I see the interpreter taking the fall for his player? I do, but in the real world, not in the movies. In the real world, you can't do it that way. When it involves illegal gambling, when the FBI is involved, when the U.S. attorney is involved, Japanese culture and respect, that takes a backseat to finding out the truth. So the worst case scenario for me, Jessica, is that Otani is implicated and Rob Manfred has to suspend him. That's the worst case. The best case is that he actually never got involved with any of the money, but I view the best case as impossible because even making $500,000 a year, I don't know how you are able to wire $500,000 or lose $4.5 million on credit with a bookie. It just does not pass the smell test to me.
Let's say it's the worst case scenario. How long is this suspension?
So, Roy, the commissioner has discretion under the collective bargaining agreement. It's not like steroids where it is set and already approved and agreed upon what the suspensions will be. The commissioner has full discretion. Anything from a lifetime ban to 20 games to 50 games, it could be anything. Rob Manfred wants it to be 0 games. He wants the story to go away. I'm not so sure it's going to happen that easily. When you look at what the level of the crime is, they've got to work with the authorities to see what Otani did. Was he the one betting? That, to me, is the number one question no one's answered other than the interpreter saying Otani never bet, baseball saying we're not investigating, but wow, that's a pretty good friend giving that amount of money to cover his gambling bets.
And Ippei's saying, by the way, he never bet on baseball, just other sports as well. To David's point, hopefully Otani's not involved, and hopefully nobody was betting on baseball, but we'll see.
Does a non-Shohei Ohtani caliber player get treated differently in this case?
I'm afraid so, and that's the tough part. And my view is that when it comes to gambling, you should treat everyone the same because it's the third rail issue in sports, way worse than steroids. Gambling is the number one issue right now, but superstars are treated differently. Now, the criminal justice system doesn't care, but so Rob Manfred may have his hands tied at the end of the day, but for now, they can do the Heisman on this and they can delay and say it's being investigated. We're going to look at it. We'll be back to you. But of course, Otani's the number one superstar. And the story broke while all eyes were on Otani and the Dodgers in Korea. Not a coincidence. So it's the perfect storm of terribleness for Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah, the Dodgers wish all the talk right now is what the hell is wrong with Yamamoto today? 1 inning, 5 runs. They gave him $325 million, 43 pitches to get 3 outs. He was a disaster. That's the least of their concerns. That's what they wish everyone was talking about today.
Can you guys explain to me how that interview got done? I was sort of reeling all over the room this morning, thinking that the reporting on a story had caught a $1 billion economy off guard, that they didn't know how to react to it correctly and immediately made it worse. Please explain to me what happened there, because I'm sort of more stunned by the fact that that interview exists than I am by this entire story.
There is not a lot of communication once you sign a player with the player's agent unless there are issues. Mostly you just go to the player. And in this case, it was what they're calling Otani's spokesperson. And you don't have to play the irresponsible journalism from Poppy, but whoever his spokesman is, there's people who believe it could be his agent, Nez. Who knows who it is? But his spokesman is the one who...
No! Time to play irresponsible journalism!
Here is something we like to call reckless speculation.
You're good.
All right, you're good.
Thank you. The spokesman had the interpreter give an interview to ESPN because questions were being asked and the LA Times was about to run a story. So you give the interview to ESPN, but then listening into the interview, he implicates Otani. all of a sudden the interview gets disavowed like they're in Mission Impossible.
It's disavowed. There was a disavowal. That happened. You're talking about depositions, oaths, and come on, what are we doing?
This is a crime. What are we doing? It's illegal gambling.
I didn't write disavowed.
Disavowed.
That's a good one. Add it to the board.
Yeah, right.
That only usually happens to Ethan Hunt.
Tony, can you explain to me where you are with this now?
We're still in data.
Every
Okay,
investigation.
Tony, go sit in the penalty box.
I love that Tony's playing the role of Mark Fanaro-Iwata. Like we had investigative journalists when it came to Balco and Victor Conti. Tony is the one that's taking care of business.
I've been the most on point here. Gustavito from the last segment was right on line
have
with this.
You ever
guys
solved
have been
a
on line with
single
this?
crime
Not
that
a
we've
one.
ever asked
I
you to
can't wait for
investigate?
Tony's version of Game of Shadows. He's going to write the book that's going to blow this thing up.
Thank you.
The true detective.
Tony, you need a bigger board
No,
for this situation.
I know. I was telling the people back here I would have way more on the web if I had more space. It's tough to write in a small board.
Can we get him a bigger
never
board?
let your investigation get hurt by the size of your board.
Thank you. Do I still have to leave?
Massive theft.
Yes, not only do you still have to leave, go to your board in the penalty box area, and please, Chris, cut up for me what I believe to be the most stumbling response in the history of our show, him trying to say the word data. I like
Data gathering.
I don't.
We're still in gathering data gathering.
He got stuck. He got his shirt stuck on the door of data gathering, and he couldn't do anything else. And his conspiracy theory unspooled. Adnan, walk me through the conflicts. You, Major League Baseball Network, now have to. Yeah, it feels to me like the reporting around some of this can we stop with the nonsense? More normalized gambling because sports have allowed the gambling dollars in. Right. It's more acceptable, and they don't know how to make the rules as this goes along because there is a future date where, Ohtani was betting football games for $4 million. Of course he was. He just signed a $700 million contract and bought Joe Kelly's wife a Porsche so he can have the uniform number.
Right. There's a part of it, Dan, which is just ridiculous. As you said, we've let all the gamblers in now. Before, as David said, it was a third rail. He couldn't do it. Now, it's still not allowed in baseball. And all of us, since I'm an employee of Major League Baseball, I do have to take, training every year. It's like a 30-minute thing, a questionnaire test. Here's where, gambling's illegal. You can't bet on baseball, et cetera. And at the same time, at MLB Network, we had a show called Bettor's Eye, which is encouraging people to gamble on the sport. So there's this, as you said, odd conflict in that, well, I can't gamble as an employee of Major League Baseball, but if you'd like to gamble, hey, here's who's looking good tonight, and whatever's what I'm picking, and blah, blah, blah. So it's, as you said, it shouldn't be that surprising that these situations are arising because when you let everybody in and you're saying gambling is okay, clearly you can't just pick and choose. And again, hopefully Ohtani himself wasn't gambling. Hopefully himself wasn't gambling in baseball. The fact that 40 states allow gambling, California does not, which is why he'd even still be using a bookie. That's odd to me as well. There's a lot to it that just doesn't make sense as Tony continues to get a larger board here.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back talking movies with these guys in a second, unless we've got bonus baseball content. Everyone here seems to love a scandal. The energy in this building's different today.
Padres 15 runs, Dan. They look great today. Machado went deep. I love it.
That's all baseball
I'm way more
needed.
Focused on the 30-minute test you took, Virk. What a bunch of eyewash.
Machado went deep when he was rounding 30 to a little cash sign with his hands. Something or nothing.
Good call, Billy. I like
something or nothing.
David, because of your unique relationship with Ichiro, I don't know how much of him you know, but he was hard to know because there's a translation cultural gap here. There is sometimes Ichiro could be hidden, and he was very careful about everything that he did. He was followed by 30, 40, 50 journalists everywhere he went all the time, always representing in public. The idea that the greatest manifestation of what Ichiro built in this country, a superstar Babe Ruth with $1 billion economy around him and media on him at all times, the idea that there would be a sloppy interview sent out on behalf of his contingent into the protection of that economy of that dude, I find it so sloppy as to find it unfathomable. Have I aged out on how this sport is covered that Ohtani isn't covered the way Ichiro was with 100 people following him everywhere?
Oh, Otani is covered that way. However, we talk all the time about how generations are different here in the U.S. Generations are also different in Japan. While their level of respect is, Otani has great respect for Ichiro, but that doesn't mean that they're best friends just because they're both Japanese players who happen to play in Major League Baseball or that's like saying that two superstars in the NBA are automatically best friends. It's not the case. The way Ichiro was meticulous with his image, with his actions, it was all based on routine. It was all based on him understanding what mattered to him, and that was baseball. There's no doubt that Otani has different things going on in his life. Obviously, baseball is quite important, but look what he did with his personal life, where he unveiled his wife. Ichiro would not do something like that because it wouldn't occur to him. He's way more private, way more controlling of his image. And this is a shot to Otani, the likes of which you don't see often happen to a superstar. Maybe A-Rod can be of assistance because when you're at that level and then you're floored. Tiger Woods is another example. But those are scandals that to me, and forgive me if you disagree, I don't view those scandals as third-rail scandals the way I view gambling. When it comes to steroids or adultery or Ambien, I view them differently than I view gambling. So I think this is uncharted territory in any of the sports we've looked at because of the caliber of player that Otani is and the scope.
And to talk further to David's point about Otani the way he is, I covered the BBWAA dinner in New York this past January. So Baseball Writers Association Awards dinner. It's where all the athletes come, they accept their awards. So, Garrett Cole's there mingling with people, et cetera. Like it's really welcoming and everyone's friendly and everyone there is obviously to get awards. Everyone's in a great mood. Otani comes in like last minute, no one knows where he is. It's like Bruce Wayne showing up. He's going to show up late. He's going to leave early. Like there's preferential treatment around Otani at all times. And because to David's point, the media scrutiny is so excessive, it's like it's almost understood that way. Like, hey, Shohei gets special rules because of this contingent around him at all times. When he went up to accept his award as the MVP, I was stunned. First thing I'd ever seen this happen, Shohei Ohtani speaking English. I couldn't believe it. Ippei was there but didn't speak. Ohtani spoke English for about 45 seconds. And I remember thinking I should pull up my phone and record this. This is history. Here we go. Ohtani speak English for the first time ever. He came over afterwards. He was going to leave. Lauren Shahadi, who's lovely, asked, hey, 2 questions, okay? 2 quick questions. But to me, it was a little bit of a glimpse into his life and just how unusual it is, how, to David's point, every single facet of his life is focused upon and determined. The fact he got married and nobody knew about this, it's not even that he keeps his private life private. It's that you're not even allowed to ask him his private life. Like everyone just, hey, it's the Otani rules. We accept whatever we can get. With another athlete, you'd say, hang on a second. We're MLB Network. We want 5 minutes. With Otani, you go, fine. 2 questions, whatever it takes. No problem. He spoke English for 30 seconds. We're thrilled. So he's been given such latitude by everybody involved in the sport. It's going to be really curious now when people want to go at him and really kind of get their money's worth.
You can't give latitude when it comes to gambling. You simply can't. There can't be Otani rules, and that's something MLB has to fight about. But you have to also look at the money involved here. MLB just made a lot of money by going to Korea. Otani was a central figure. Their imprint in Asia is increased by the presence of Otani. Having him on the Dodgers is critical. The Dodgers are making money off Otani in Asia. They're making money off him in the U.S. with their increased ticket prices. This is the last thing the Dodgers want. They want to get rid of this too. So there's a lot of factors that would indicate that this can go away. But on the other hand, you're dealing with his agent, who's not very professional. You're dealing with gambling, and you're dealing with the government and investigations. And that's why I think the story will have legs.
I'm not sure whose background was weirder, the LA Times columnist in a bunker or David Samson on this weird little couch that is not shaped like a baseball mitt, I should add.
So I'm giving a lecture at State College. I'm at Penn State right now, and I'm doing a sports business lecture this afternoon. So I'm doing my shows from a hotel in State College, Pennsylvania.
Does the couch have to match the school colors? Like, what's going on with that?
I don't even want to talk about the room I'm in, but I'm here for the students, so I'm happy to do it.
Because I thought, to be honest, guys, I'm glad Justin Toy brought up. I thought David was about to go on tour here. I saw something about a nothing personal tour. Can we get some details on that?
Adnan, your agent called because you wanted in on the tour. What are you
That's
talking
correct.
about? Stop pretending that you didn't know about the tour that starts April 2nd in Philadelphia. We're getting calls from DraftKings, from agents, from people who want to appear. Adnan, we're trying to sell tickets and bring people in.
Well, and to be clear, I brought you in, right? With the Academy Awards, we did the Oscar show together, me, you, and Ben Lyons. We had robust numbers.
Do you
I would
realize,
only imagine now I'll be extended this courtesy. I'm an hour, 45 minutes from Philadelphia. Look at that. I'll type in 990 Filbert Street right now on my Google Maps. I can be there in 2 hours.
do you guys realize that if you toured, you'd sell out right now? If the two of you, if the two of you promised to tour where you would talk
Right now.
for 90 minutes, that we'd sell out everything before the end of today's broadcast if you two agreed to do that.
Adnan, your agent wanted too much money. So I turned it down immediately. You were acting like Ben Lyons during this negotiation. It was outrageous.
Another Ben Lyons outrageous contract demand. This is outrageous.
Tony, how do you feel about everything that happened with you last segment? Because I don't think I'm
trying to do good reporting here, Dan.
right.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do good reporting. I'm trying to write down on my web, on my whiteboard. People
Let's
talking
relive.
in my
Let's
ear.
relive what you were
Tone,
trying to
really
say.
talking to
Tone,
me.
stop defending it before we've played it back. You were trying to say data gathering.
We're still in gather we're still in gather gather. What is gather?
Data.
Hey, gathers.
We are done gathering data for now on Otani. Let's segue seamlessly into the movies. We've got 3.5 minutes left. What are we doing today with the movies?
I came up with this idea, Dan, because I love Samson's passion with regards to Jazz Chisholm. And I loved even more Jazz firing back at David on Twitter. So top 5 Jazz movies of all time. That's right. Jazz in film. Let's do it, Samson.
It is hard for me to imagine the way that story blew up from yesterday's show where I said the clubhouse would not be jolly. And so Jazz tweeted that it was jolly. What's he going to tweet? That he got whatever. Top 5 Jazz movies. Way to go, Dan.
The Big Dog's producer was not understanding why we give you a platform to insult Jazz or anybody.
I don't know that I was insulting Jazz. I was actually just trying to tell people the truth because of my experience with Miguel Rojas and my experience with people in the Marlins clubhouse right now. I'm not a reporter. I just have friends who are in the clubhouse. So I know the truth about what goes on in that clubhouse. And the fact that people don't want to hear it or they want to make it a race issue, it's not a race issue at all. It's just talking about people and how they act in the clubhouse. That's all I was doing.
You said Conine and Lowell would have kicked his ass.
And yes, that is correct.
By the way, I'm working with Mike Lowell opening day, March 3rd. I'm going to ask him point blank, Mike, David Samson says you would have kicked his ass. I want an answer. I'll report back to you guys.
I'll bet you $1, Adnan. Top 5 Jazz movies.
Number 5.
I'm ready.
Number 5. 2 minutes left. We got to bang through these.
Number 5, Whiplash. Number 4, Bird, Forrest Whitaker, Charlie Parker. Watch it. Number 3, The Cotton Club, Richard Gere, Gregory Hines. Number 2, La La Land. I love you, Emma. You're Streep. And number 1, Jeff Bridges, Bo Bridges, Michelle Pfeiffer, The Fabulous Baker Boys.
Con Club overrated, not one of Coppola's best. Love the shout out to Bird, though. Forrest Whitaker, Clint Eastwood, of course, huge jazz guy. Charlie Parker, all-time classic. And I'll mention with regards to Fabulous Baker Boys, Roger Ebert's review. There's a scene in the Fabulous Baker Boys when Michelle Pfeiffer, wearing a slinky red dress, uncurls on top of a piano while singing Making Whoopee. The rest of the movie is also worth the price of admission. One of the most famous blurbs ever to a movie. Number 5, Sweet and Lowdown. Sean Penn playing a jazz guitarist, Woody Allen film. Number 4, Born to be Blue. Ethan Hawke is amazing in that film, playing Chet Baker. Number 3, La La Land. And the winner is La La Land. Number 2, Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, Mo Better Blues. I didn't see the title yet. Number 1 is Whiplash, J.K. Simmons performance.
So you didn't go with soul, but I'm very happy that you didn't go with the jazz singer.
I love Neil Diamond.
Al Jolson, not getting a shout out. Mo Better Blues, Roy. Classic Denzel.
Cinephile is where you find Adnan Virk. Nothing Personal is where you find David Samson. Thank you, gentlemen. A bona fide sports baseball scandal has brought everyone in this room.
I'm telling you, earlier, people are going crazy around here.
I can't believe what's happening around here. This became a newsroom. Get Adnan, get Samson. They have opinions. We talked to we woke up a poor LA Times journalist in a cave of books somewhere, and he said, something is happening here. And we're like, you're goddamn right there is.